Indiana, where we had legal fireworks, and people came down from Illinois to buy them. I don't remember having any issues, at least where I was, with people hurting themselves with fireworks. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I think education is probably the most important thing on this part. But the fact that somebody's made a livelihood here is not a reason why I would ever say, oh, we can't change this, because you need structural changes. With the school boards, you need structural changes. You're going to have school choice, because some public school teachers might have to be let go in these rural districts, and you might have some structural change in the economy. You can't just hold that up forever, because there might be some shifting of jobs. It's unfortunate, but we're not going to let perfectly be anything good. So that's not a reason why I would not enact that legislation, but I feel like education is the most important thing we can do in concern with fireworks. It's kind of like firearms. Thank you.
Completely different answer. That needs to be local ordinance control. Absolutely. That is not a state mandate. That needs to be something that's local control. Johns Creek needs to make the decision on what fireworks limitations are going to be. Suwanee, Sugar Hill, Beaufort, South Forsyth need to make those decisions. That is not something for the state to mandate, and it needs to be local control. Absolutely, positively, no question beyond it. So, to answer the question specifically, Tom, yes, that's what we need to do. With regards to moving jobs or anything to do with that, you can't tell somebody in a rural part of the state that they're going to have to change jobs because of a statewide mandate on anything. We have to treat our neighbors in rural Georgia with as much love and respect as what we have here, but we also have to recognize what their specific needs are. And if there's something regarding the fireworks industry that negatively impacts that, I think it's worth looking at, but that also goes back to local control. And so that's why the decision needs to be made there. Thanks.
This is nuanced. You touched a little bit on this, but it is still different. Do you support the legal battle on our 2020 election fraud now that more evidence has come forward regarding mules, ballot harvesting, dead voters, etc.?
100%. To your point, Tom, I think I've answered that question pretty clearly. With the people at True the Vote, I have been working with them since December of 2020. So I've seen the data, I know the numbers. I can't discuss a lot of it because I have pending litigation on a lot of this. Okay, so respecting the law is an important part of understanding what you can and can't say. I am going to continue to be at the forefront of this fight, of the audit, and everything related to it. Nothing more to add on that.
Thank you. So, yeah, absolutely we need to follow through on the True the Vote and the ballot harvesting. One of the issues is that True the Vote actually presented months. I will say that my group and I, we were actually some of the people who were looking at the terabyte hard drive, 2 terabyte hard drives, with the footage of the drop boxes here in Gwinnett County. Somebody in my group is the one who actually found the one at Suwanee Public Library where they're fanning out the ballot. So we've been doing this when no one was watching and never thought I was even going to talk to anybody about it. But we've been on the front lines with this the whole time. And one of the things that's important is True the Vote gave this information to GBI. They gave this information to the governor months ago. And they refused to act on it. So we all know that I think most of us know the election was stolen, or at least that there were serious issues. But what does that do for us if we're not willing to act on it and be unpopular? So for me, Governor Kemp has failed us by not enforcing the law and having his GBI investigate properly, having his Attorney General prosecute these people. And public pressure is a real thing. If you can't put public pressure on these politicians as a politician yourself, then how do you expect the regular citizens to do it? Like, you're the one that has that sway. So it's important we speak the truth to power and not be afraid of it's going to make us unpopular. Am I going to lose a committee position? I don't care. Like, I'm here to help save the country, do my little part. So if they get unhappy with me, that's not my problem, because I'm speaking truth. And same thing with Attorney General, GBI, I do not trust at all. So we need to start holding them accountable. I think there should be an oversight committee of some sort to investigate GBI, to investigate the Attorney General's office. Why have they not done anything? That seems extremely bizarre. Are we just going to complain about it, or are we going to do something about it? That's what I'm the legislator to do. Call them out. Hold them accountable, investigate. Thank you.
Stay right there. What qualifications do you have to be our state senator?
Okay, so regarding my qualifications, I have heard some of my detractors say that, well, I'm not qualified. I'm not sure exactly why they say that, but I'm not qualified. Besides going to Northwestern Law School, passing the bar, I understand the law. I talked in front of the Gwinnett Elections Board, arguing affidavits and specific residence requirements. Like, that's not any trouble for me. But the good news is that although I understand the law, I also am a regular person. I don't hang out with CEOs. I don't have any lawyer friends. Not that there's anything wrong with them. It's just that I have a perspective of the regular person because I work with them. They're my friends. I worship with regular people. I don't hang out with the political class at all. And so that gives me perspective that a lot of people who are in the legal field don't have. But I still have that expertise. And so, for example, I can read a bill without having to call in legal counsel. I can read legalese and understand what it says. I can write a law without having legal counsel come in. Now, I still want to work with the legislative counsel of the state capitol because they do provide help, but I don't need that because I have experience with it. I delve into it all the time, even with what I'm doing now. And plus, I can explain it to people in a way that they understand. A lot of people don't even understand what the laws are that are being passed. Some of the legislators don't read them, as we know with HB 1013. So that would be a problem with me. I'm used to reading this stuff all the time regarding election law and school choice. Like, it's something I feel very comfortable with, and you need to have a legislature who can get their hands on the law, understand it, and craft it. It doesn't have to just rely on an attorney to do it. Thank you.
You don't have to have a law degree to understand a bill. I've been helping write bills, sponsor understanding workshops to legislators so that they can understand how these affect business owners and citizens. So I get it. I've been working with legislators at the Capitol since 2008 when we had the drought here in Georgia. This area was especially affected by it. And I was the lone person that stood up for my industry and lobbied as a private citizen to be able to help them understand the economic impact that would have. That it would have impacted thousands and thousands of jobs. That's how I know these people. I'm not part of a class. I wear jeans and I drive a pickup truck. I'm a construction guy. I have been allowed an opportunity to get to know these people because of hard work. Hard work, putting in the time, and be able to be a full-time legislator. That's the other part of all this. This is a citizen legislature. But because I have such an amazing team, I'm in a unique position that I can deal with this 12 months a year. To not only be full-time at the Capitol, but to be your state senator the other 9 months of the year. That is a very unique set of skills that I can bring to this office. Thanks.
Sean, what current Georgia law would you eliminate if you could?
Sounds like the fireworks bill would be one that you'd like me to start with. HB 202 was, in my opinion, the very first bill that the way it tracked and the way that it was split apart and everything that happened to it was the most damaging thing that has happened this year. I think everybody in the room would agree with that. They stripped out some pieces, they added others. It became a bit of a Christmas tree bill. And when something is that important as elections gets things attached to it, or stripped, or taken away, or added that don't have the opportunity to be fully vetted, that's terrifying to me. And so our election laws and our bills related to that, everything that was looped and connected to 202 that then came to the end of session, those need to be completely reworked and put into a single standalone bill that eliminates drop boxes entirely. It calls for the audit. It holds the Secretary of State's office accountable. It does more than just put the GBI in charge of investigations, because I was in the meeting when we met with the GBI, presented them the data, and they didn't want to look at it. So I know what is involved with this. That's where it's going to have to start, is on elections. If we don't fix that first, then all the things that many of us in this room have been doing is for nothing.
So in terms of removing a bill, I do have concerns about HB 1013, even though they did remove a lot of the negative issues with using WHO language and saying someone could be just any kind of a threat and they could be involuntary committed. Now they changed it back to an imminent threat of harm. I still don't like anything that involves the idea of creating more bureaucracy, creating more agencies, and I am very susceptible, very sensitive to the idea of mental health. Like, that's not at all what this is about. I won't focus on it too much because I've not read the bill in total since then, so I'm not going to speak to it. But I do have some concerns. I'd like to take a closer look at it and see how much good it actually does. SB 202 is the most important bill that we need to revamp, though, particularly because it did not do anything to get rid of mini voting systems. The absentee ballots are still a major issue. You can register to vote now and using a utility bill or a copy of the government check, something like that. And then when you go in to vote with an absentee ballot, you can use your driver's license number. That means that if you can hack DDS, then you can get access to somebody's information and vote on their behalf. The false idea that you need a photo ID now to vote with absentee voting is not true. You can look up the law. You do not need a photo ID. And that's a major problem. Like, the Democrats are extremely smart. They're extremely tough. They know how to work around the laws to get things fixed. And the problem is not that we need new ideas. I think most people with common sense know that you can't just use a driver's license number and have faith in the identity of somebody with an absentee ballot. It's the courage to do it and not care if somebody calls you racist, not care if they call you, say, bad press. If your own party doesn't think you're trying to do too much or upsetting the vote, I don't care. And I think that's what needs more legislators that simply don't care if people aren't happy with it there. You still have to work with people. I'm a very civil, friendly person, but I'm not going to sacrifice election integrity because my kids need to grow up in this country. Your kids need to grow up in this country. If we don't have secure elections, we do not have a republic. So, yeah, SB 202 would be it. Thank you.
Stay right there. What are the top 3 issues for the Senate 48th district?
I'd say the top 3 issues here probably reflect the top 3 issues that we have throughout the country. One is illegal immigration, and I've discussed that at length, how we can get our Gwinnett County Sheriff, for example, back enforcing illegal immigration laws, how we can get some teeth to laws that are already on the books. Inflation is a huge issue, and a lot of people say, well, there's nothing you can do about inflation. Well, first of all, by securing your elections and getting the right people in office, like I believe President Trump should have gotten there, we probably should have a majority in the Senate as well. You prevent the profligate spending that caused the value of the dollar to drop, that caused that inflation. That is a major issue, and it's not a federal issue, it's a state issue because the elections have to be secured at the state level. So they are intertwined, and you can't get away from that. Number 2, you can also help boost wages, and I've discussed how limiting illegal labor can help stop that downward pressure on wages. And again, it's nothing personal about the people. And the other biggest issue, I'd say, is school choice. In this area, school choice is something that we have to get done in this last session. We have a majority in the state Senate, a majority in the state House. We could not get school choice passed. That is a travesty to me. I know that some people might have changed from their jobs, but you have to look beyond yourself when some kids are suffering like this. I'm sorry, and it could come in your backyard next in a rural community. And as well, not being able to get rid of drop boxes. This is something I've been calling for a long time, not just recently. And it's something that should have been done clearly this past session. We have a majority. The fact that it couldn't get done, a common sense reform, tells me that the people in the state Senate right now they don't have the courage to do what needs to be done. They're afraid of being called names, or maybe somebody higher up tells them they shouldn't change election law that much. But the people are the ones who elect you. The people are the ones that you're accountable to. Those are the people that you're listening to, not other politicians, not the governor. So that's how I feel about that.
People don't have faith in the election system. I think we've kind of worn this one out. If they don't have faith in that, everything else fails. So it starts with faith in our electoral process. Number 2, and this is very personal to me, protecting girls' sports was handled completely wrong. It was fumbled at the last minute, in the last hour of session. There was an opportunity for the state legislature to pass a law that would have required same-sex to compete in their given sports. They punted that decision to the Georgia High School Association so that they wouldn't have to make the hard decision. They got weak. And a few, not all, but a few legislators compromised, I think, their values a little bit on that night. My campaign manager played soccer. And if boys that she played football with came down to play soccer against her, that's wrong. But further, she was also a collegiate athlete. And we all know the story about the male swimmer competing in Pennsylvania. So when she can play college soccer, but then the opportunity to play against biological boys, that's wrong. So girls sports has to carry all the way through, protect scholarships for young women, and carry it all the way through to completion. The third and final thing is, because we talked about immigration, this is the most ethnically and economically diverse district in our state. We have to do a better job of bringing together and embracing the fact that we are a minority to majority state, or majority to minority. We have to embrace that. We have to love on that. We have to lean into that. And we have got to move forward as a community together. So no more divisive curriculum of any kind. Thank you.
Zoning for the single-family housing has come under attack recently. In the city of Minneapolis, in the states of Oregon and California, passed legislation to severely restrict or completely ban single-family zoning. Views on this issue will largely fall upon party lines. Opponents of this legislation claim it will help to make housing more affordable, while others see this as a draconian measure to socially and financially engineer residential communities. What are your thoughts on this issue? And as a prospective member of the General Assembly, can you ever see yourself leaning towards similar legislation in the state of Georgia?
Multifamily housing, because I work in the construction field, a bit of a unique perspective on this. So what's happening in Minneapolis is happening specifically because it's creating more low-income housing to drive people that typically vote Democrat, and so they're trying to push it in that direction. People that live in this district in particular, there is not a lot of multifamily housing. Most of it tends to be single-family homes. I don't believe that is what makes this district red or blue. I believe that that's simply, I think we're more of a red-leaning district simply by values. I don't think it has anything to do with home price. But there has to be a balance. A. B, beyond that, the local city councils, and we have 6 city councils in this district, ultimately they're the ones that are going to have to make that decision. We have one of our amazing Johnson Creek City Councilman, Bob Aramelli, sitting in the back. Thank you for being here, sir. But it's understanding what their needs are too, and it's being able to talk to all of the cities that are in our respective districts and being able to represent their needs at the Capitol. So while I know the heart of Johns Creek, and I know the heart of South Forsyth, and of Suwanee, and of Beaufort, and of Sugar Hill, and that little sliver of Alpharetta that we have over there, and that part of Alpharetta that we have has no multifamily housing. That is by design, but that was also very specific as part of the bigger picture of the city planning. And so our job as state legislators is to support fully the efforts by our city councils to make sure that we're working together, that their planning and zoning is in sync with what we're looking at legislatively across the city.
So regarding the housing question, my issue isn't so much the fact that it's lower income or higher income housing. In Sugar Hill, we have a lot of new developments going on in our area that are specifically apartment buildings or they're townhomes, specifically the apartment buildings where people do not own it. Okay, they do not own it, they're just renting. That is a concern for me more, having either everything that's built in my area, it seems like now, is either super expensive homes that most people can't afford, or they're apartments that don't allow people to build equity, and they just have to pay rent indefinitely. And this is a concern, besides the fact on traffic, how much traffic we're having now with all these new developments. Overdevelopment in general, I think, is a problem. I think people get a little bit greedy. But also, people might think of this as being a little conspiratorial, but there is an issue about the World Economic Forum having a plan to try to remove personal ownership of homes from people. We can see it with BlackRock, the way they're buying up everyone's homes at prices that most people can't afford. Like my sister-in-law is having trouble finding a place to live at because all the BlackRock people like that come in and pay $10,000 more than they can afford, and then they can't get a home. I'm worried about just stuck in apartments forever. And so that's something, can we incentivize that at the state legislature? We can't really legislate, because that's really done at the local level, but is there any incentives we can provide for people to not do just apartment buildings and to control this overbuilding, this overdevelopment? That's something I'm interested in, but we have to get creative because we're having a whole generation that's not going to own anything, and they're supposed to be happy about it, but I don't think it's right. So if you don't know anything about the World Economic Forum, you should look it up, but it's a real thing with Klaus Schwab. Thank you.
Sid.
What is your opinion about the Georgia HB 2013, the mental health bill?
HB 1013? Yeah, I kind of touched on that earlier. Definitely, the version that came out the first time was a major train wreck because it was, first of all, I have to be blunt, any kind of legislation that is sponsored by David Ralston automatically makes me extremely skeptical and nervous about why he's doing it because I believe he has a lot of not so pure incentives for some of the bills he's trying to pass and just the way he conducts himself in general. And he was one of the sponsors of that bill, so that's a red flag for me. But also, WHO got to decide what was mental health illness, and what wasn't. And we've seen from the pandemic and their response, they're completely non-credible. We should not be relying on them for anything. And we should keep all of our definitions, all of our terms here in Georgia, something we can control, not outside of Georgia. Also, I mentioned the involuntary confinement of people just because they think they might cause harm to somebody in the future. Nothing about imminent harm. They took that language out. That sounds like the kind of thing, and it sounds kind of like tinfoil hat type talk, but you know how communist regimes work if you've looked at history. That is a very real thing. They will try to separate people from their families, put them away. It's something that can happen here. I feel like we've been in a big nap for a long time in America. We think that that can't happen here. That we're not going to have any invasion on our soil, that we're going to be fine forever. We can't be so complacent. We have to be on guard and be alert because it can happen here, it can happen anywhere. So HB 1013, the way it was initially designed, no way would I ever vote for that. I applaud the three legislators who did actually read it and saw that it was a disaster. The second version of the bill, I'm not going to speak too much on it. I haven't read the entire bill. I've heard that they took a lot of that negative language out regarding WHO and voluntary confinement. I am still skeptical about anything with David Ralston's name on it, and I'm skeptical about adding more agencies. I feel like usually less government is a better idea than more government, but the original one was bad.
One of the key authors of that bill is State Representative Todd Jones. He lives in this Senate district in South Forsyth. His heart, as I've talked to him for the last 6 months as he was working on that piece of legislation, his heart was in the right place on that. There were some things that were added in outside of his original intent, specifically some of the things regarding WHO, and a lot of the classifications that upset a lot of people. And we don't need to get into the minutia. If you're familiar with 1013, then you know what the minutia is. Those things were removed. So the final draft, that was a good thing. But the main reason 1013 was written is because we had a mental health crisis in this country. If we do not address those mental health issues with greater support, especially for our local police departments, if our police do not have the tools of what it requires to be able to go to a call that is a mental health situation, they have to take them to the county jail to deal with them there. That's not how we deal with mental health in this country. So I applaud the work that was put into it. I applaud the edits that were done to it. And the final draft I thought was terrific. And I think that Representative Jones poured his heart and soul into that. He was vilified, and I hate the way that he was treated through that process. But I will say that ultimately, I think what we got in the end is something that I think most people can live with, and it's definitely a step in the right direction to helping mental health in the state.
How are you going to manage work and family time if you are elected?
My daughters are 10, 14, and 16. I have over 100 employees at my company, and although we have 2 offices in Gwinnett and I is his deep, deep hope that I'll be able to carry on that tradition with him. And the organizations that he's worked with have supported me with that. I'd go further to say that my company completely supports this. My entire management team has said, go, run, do this. You've been working for this for so many years. You've been at the forefront of so many issues. It's time for you to be able to do this. We've got you. You keep going. You keep pushing. We want you. We need you. The number of organizations that have lined up in support of me, the number of residents, of people here in our community that I've known for years, decades of time, are all supporting me with this. So I'm ready on day one, Tom. I'm ready to go. Thank you.
Hey, yes, I'm absolutely ready to go on day one as well. One of the fortunate things I have is I have a lot of flexibility with my schedule. Without going into too much detail, my wife makes a pretty decent living. We live a very simple life. I work for extra income to bring in to help us during the week, but I'm fine right now with the campaign. I've cut down to 1 day a week so I can do on this campaign. We could go on like this forever. We don't have a swimming pool in the backyard. We don't go on extravagant vacations, but we're happy. And most importantly, my kids have to grow up in this country, and I am deadly concerned about the fact that we're going to lose our republic, and I don't know what's going to happen to them if our country is lost, whether from foreign invasion, whether from internal strife and depression. Those are very real things that can happen. So it's not an option of whether I can or cannot do it. I have to do it because there's a lack of people with credibility, lack of people with conviction, and with the right reasons for why they're there in the state legislature. So we can financially afford it. It's not going to be an issue. We made a little line of our income, frankly, so it's not something that's going to be affecting our lifestyle. And I work hard. Like I do this pretty much all the time when I'm not watching the kids. I work on this stuff. So it's something I enjoy. I feel like it's God has called me to do this. I have to do this to save the country from my family. At least in my little small part to be a cog in the wheel. So I have to do it, and I'm committed to it. Nothing's going to stop me once I get in there.
This is a new one on me, but have you ever been arrested and why?
Yes, I have been arrested. I'll go over them. I was arrested for minor intoxication when I was, I believe, 18, 19, something like that. I was drinking when I shouldn't have, when I was too young. It was a mistake. I also got arrested for possession of paraphernalia when I was, I think, 21, something like that. I had dropped out of school, and I wanted to live that lifestyle. It was a mistake, especially now that I have, ever since that time, I've never gotten involved in anything like that. I have kids now, never dream of it, but yeah, it was a mistake. It was a marijuana pipe, is what it was, a marijuana bowl, I should say, that I had in the backseat of my car. That's what the paraphernalia was. I've heard some people spreading rumors maybe that, I don't know, that it was some kind of a drug bust or that I had a bunch of things in my car. It was a marijuana bowl. That's what I got arrested for. I don't support it. I regret it. It was a mistake, but that's what it was. It was a long time ago. Since that time, I also got a DUI, I believe it was 2009. I've also heard another false rumor that had something to do with why I did not become a lawyer. I passed the ethics portion of the bar. I passed the bar exam. I approved my website of that. It had nothing to do with that. And I was having drinks with friends who I hadn't seen for a while. They just moved into the state. We were celebrating it. And I made a mistake. I had more than I should have. And I drove home and it was a mistake. It was a life lesson. I've never done anything like that again. I'm actually the poster child. I probably annoy everyone around me because I literally wouldn't even have like a rum cake and get behind the wheel. Like I'm so the other direction on that now. It's not funny. So, but it was a life lesson, and people need to go through that to become better people. Especially now that I have kids, not a chance I'll ever do that. No one should ever get behind the wheel with any amount of alcohol.